You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
It's hard to imagine just how hard it could be to tragically lose your husband, making you a widow at a really young age, and suddenly realizing that your career, the profession that you've known and loved your entire professional life, is suddenly no longer viable for you as a single mother with two young girls to care for. And how that one shift, that complete flip in your whole reality and your whole life and world, is then the catalyst for a business idea in a totally different direction that you could grow into a flourishing global business in the space of just a few years. It's almost unbelievable that this could really have happened. And yet it did. So please stay tuned to hear all about this and so much more, overcoming such huge adversity in life and how you can turn that into a purpose-filled and joyful life instead in today's episode. So please stay tuned. It's coming right up.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
And my very lovely guest today is Karen Sutton, who is the UK's very first widow coach. Now you might ask, well, what is a widow coach? And she is a coach who specializes in grief and loss, but specifically for women who have lost their husbands, and the discovery and the journey that they go on in finding purpose in life again, finding themselves, redefining what their life really is and who they are in this new identity, with a significant part of your life and your relationship connection, suddenly that's disappeared. Now, Karen comes to this with so much passion and energy and just such an incredible perspective from somebody who has had a huge tragic event happen to her in her life, to then have the approach that she has in how that's not going to make her a victim, how she's not going to let it overhang her in her whole life and her children's life, but yet honor it and live with it, live through it, and really bring that with her. Now, she turned that into a business where she's now globally coaching other widows on their journey through their loss and their grief and finding themselves again, rebuilding their life. So it is just an absolutely beautiful episode to listen to. There's so much in here and just so many really great insights that you can take, even if this is nothing like you've ever experienced before and you're not going through it. But have a listen into Karen's approach and how she created this business with no business experience before, and what she did to grow a global business, and some of the challenges she's experienced, some of the decisions that she's made, because they're very similar to exactly the same things we all go through in our business. Now, without further ado, let me play the interview for you. Otherwise, I'll share everything that's going on before you've even listened, and I'd much rather that you hear it from the lovely Karen herself. So let's get started. Okay, and I am here with Karen Sutton. Karen, welcome to She's the Business podcast. I'm so glad to have you with me tonight. Well, today for you, isn't it? Because you're all the way from the UK. We're literally speaking to each other from opposite sides of the world. It's winter and a bit of a windy, rainy night for me, and you guys have had like 40-degree temperatures, so it couldn't be more different.
Yeah, we are actually melting over here. We cannot cope.
Oh, it's so funny to think about, but maybe not so funny for you to be experiencing. So thank you for making the time to come and join me, even though you're melting. And I would love for you to let us know a bit about you. So can you tell us just first of all who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business?
Oh, yeah, of course. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love doing these podcasts. So thank you. So my name's Karen Sutton and I am the Widow Coach. I'm the UK's first widow coach. And essentially, I'm a grief and loss coach, but I specialise in widowhood. I support people through their grief, to help them find a more positive way through it, to support and nurture themselves through it in a kinder way, and then also helping them rebuild a life that can feel meaningful and vibrant and full, something they can flourish in again. Because, you know, when you lose a life partner, you lose so much. You lose your confidence, your self-esteem, your place in the world, parts of your identity, your roles, you know, sometimes homes, finance, it goes on. Like the secondary losses are endless. And trying to navigate your way through all this whilst grieving your person, missing your person, it's tough. And we do not understand anything about grief, what it looks like, how it feels, what we should do. So I like to educate people. I like to normalize it, to help them see that everything that they're feeling and thinking is valid and natural, how they can, like I say, look after themselves through all of that, support themselves better, and then reconnect with themselves, who they are in the world, the people around them, and build something that can feel good again, while still, you know, honoring their person, loving their person, and carrying that forward. Because I think there's this notion that we move away from grief, like we can get over it, and it's very much learning to carry it forward with you and building a life around it. You grow as a person, but the grief is always there, but it doesn't always feel so heavy. And it's just helping people, I suppose, do all of that, because I truly believe in the power of connection. And when you bring people together that are going through something similar, things happen. They really do. It really is quite incredible. So I just love to create space, groups, events where people can come together and meet others that are going through something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, what you said there about, you know, honoring them and being able to shift through the part where the grief is really so strong and probably overtaking your life, to where you can actually continue with your life while you're still honoring their memory, and not have it feel like you're shutting the door on that part and you're moving on and they're not there anymore. Because I guess that's probably a worry that some people have. But something stood out to me on your website, because I was, you know, doing a bit of a read through before we joined each other on the podcast. And I just love the fact, because you're a mum, you've got kids, and you're like, you didn't want this to overshadow your life, and it to be something that really impacted your lives and their lives negatively, even though it's such a traumatic experience, obviously, to go through. And, you know, my heart just goes out to you. But I thought that is so powerful, because it could be just really easy to hold on to it for so long, and then, you know, that effect that it would have on the children as well. Like, I could only imagine. That's just so insightful of you.
Do you know what, that came quite naturally to me, because obviously all this came about because my husband died in 2016, and it was a very instinctive feeling of mine. And I remember saying to my mum and my sister, I don't want this to define myself and the girls for the rest of our lives in a negative way. Like this, we are not going to become victims. I had no idea how I was going to do that, by the way. It was just something in me that I just felt to my core, because you can see it. It does happen. You know, these circumstances, situations, life events, tragedies happen to people. And not always around death, but around all different events in life. And people do hold on to them. They do hold on to them for very, very many different reasons. And, you know, for me, losing Simon, my husband, there is a fear that by rebuilding, trying to create something good again and living life, there's an element of you that feels that's quite, you're being quite disloyal, and you're not respecting them in their life. You're not grieving properly. You know, no longer love them, you no longer miss them. All these things you tell yourself, all the meaning that you attach to these things that just simply aren't true. And, I had to figure that out. I had to discover that actually you can live a really full, wonderful life and still grieve your person, still miss them, but they come with you. They're part of that. I mean, you are who you are because of the people you've had in your life. And as much as it feels like part of you died with your person, part of them lives on in you. You carry them forward in life. And, it's allowing their light to continue to shine, I suppose, and remembering who they were, what they taught you, what you loved most about them, and continuing those values, those traits. So you still feel connected to them, and you feel like they're still here, which they are. That they're always in your heart. That doesn't go away. That they die, but the love doesn't die. It all changes. It all evolves over time. But it's understanding that, yes, life's going to look very different. You're going to look very different in your new world, but different doesn't have to mean bad. And there's very much, for me, I thought, if I allowed my husband's death to change me, that would be bad, because I would become a negative victim of life that was, resentful and angry and bitter and twisted. But it didn't, once I learned that I could accommodate all these changes and allow them to help me grow as a person, it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't bad. Actually, a lot of the changes have been very good.
Wow, that's just so beautiful, that concept that they're with you, because yes, of course they are, but we always focus on the fact that they're not here anymore, but
yes,
they're not here in body, but they are still with you and they're still part of your life. And I like that is just beautiful, like so simple, so powerful, so impactful.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really interested, because I'm guessing that you never thought in a million years that you were going to start a business as a widow coach until you obviously became a widow and this happened. So can you tell me just, how did this even come about? What sparked the idea for you to start this business? What were you before? What was your previous occupation, or what were you in your life beforehand? How did this happen? Because
I don't know how this happened. I was thinking about it on my run this morning, and you kind of take a moment sometimes to reflect and think about where you are and what you're doing. And I'm like, how did I get to this point? This was never in my plan. This wasn't kind of something I set out to do. I never thought, I'm going to become the UK's first widow coach. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do group coaching sessions. I'm going to hold events. Like, that wasn't it. So in my previous life, when I was married to Simon, I was a midwife, and I was a nurse before that. And then when Simon died, the girls were 9 and 5, and logistically, going back and doing shift work, like nights, weekends and stuff, quite difficult when you're on your own. I did have family, but, my family all still worked. Also, I wasn't mentally capable of going in and doing that job. And it's not the kind of job that you can go into and do half-heartedly. Like, people's lives are in your hands, and you've got to be on the ball. And I could not afford to make mistakes in my role as a midwife, because that, God, it's just not even worth thinking about.
No.
And I was very fortunate in that Simon left us in a position that I could take a couple of years out and get us through that and be there for my children. So I did. And after 2.5 years, I still felt incredibly lost. I didn't know what to do. And I kind of thought, I need something in my life. I need to do something, but I don't know what it is. And going back to work didn't feel right for me anymore, which was hard, because that was a huge part of my identity. Like I said, I'd been a nurse and a midwife. I'd been doing it for years. It was all I'd known. And I felt really proud of it. I worked for the NHS, and it was a wonderful job. You're with people at an incredible time of their lives, but it just didn't feel right anymore. So anyway, I decided to get myself a coach and invest in me, and, for health and fitness reasons, really. But what I didn't realize is that we'd be working on my mindsets, my perspectives and my behaviors and my thought, all that stuff. I didn't even know it was a thing, genuinely. But in 6 months, my life had changed dramatically. I felt clearer. I felt more in control. I felt fitter. I felt healthier. I felt more confident. I understood myself better. I knew what I wanted, what I needed from life, and what I desired. And I just kind of thought, do you know what? I think I was about 42 at the time. If I can do this, I'm just a normal girl, was married, couple of kids, husband died, normal job. Like, if I can take back control and help myself to go from this awful, dark, heavy place to someone that felt a lot lighter, a lot brighter, and I was a lot more in control and clearer, I want to help other people do it. So I had this office at the end of my garden, which actually my husband Simon, worked from himself. And I thought, do you know what? I might just become a coach, and I'm going to see people in my office at the end of the garden. I'm just going to coach them through life events. So I've sort of started off as a breakup and bereavement coach, people going through, women going through divorces and breakups or loss, death, and just help them take, the focus back onto themselves, prioritize themselves, their self-care, that kind of thing. And honestly, that's how I thought it would be. Just people locally coming around, work 2.5, 3 days a week. That was it.
Yeah.
It has just evolved, and it has grown. And I've obviously, lockdown happened. I discovered Zoom. I didn't even know Zoom was a thing. I never knew that even existed. So I started seeing people online, but then of course that opened me up to the rest of the world. So then I was getting clients in India, France, Australia, America, Canada. I was just like, oh my God. And because of my story, I was attracting widows, that's my story. And so I decided, I think it was the beginning of last year, 2020 maybe. What year are we in now? I completely confused. What year were we in?
2022.
22. So maybe it was the beginning of 2021. But I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to be a widow coach, because that's my story. That's what I do. It says what it does on the tin, that kind of thing. And I was scared. I was really scared, because everyone says niche down, breakup and bereavement coach. Pretty generic, isn't it? Like, everyone fits into that somewhere along the line. And trying to get my messaging right for people that were going through breakups and bereavements and different, I couldn't get it right. I was trying to reach too many people. So I bit the bullet, and it was the best thing I ever did. You know what it's like. You're so scared of these things, aren't they? And they say, like, face your fears and all that. I've really, learned all of this stuff. So I did. And it has just gone from strength to strength, because I can speak to the people I want to speak to. I've started my podcast. I'm now running live events. I've stopped doing one-to-one coaching. I'm just doing groups, because I couldn't physically help the amount of people that wanted the help doing it one-to-one. So it's one-to-many now. But actually, like I say, that power in groups and bringing people together is incredible. And it just keeps growing, and it just keeps evolving. And I keep thinking of new things that I can do, and I don't have enough time to do them.
The curse of the entrepreneur.
You have all these ideas all the time, don't you? And you're like, oh, that's brilliant, that's brilliant. And then you think, oh, I haven't got any time. I'm also a mum, and and trying to live a life and all of that kind of good stuff. So it's very much a balancing act, but it's been one hell of a journey. I mean, I have no business acumen whatsoever. My husband was, he ran businesses. He was in marketing. That's what he did. And he did it so well. He went in and he took a broken company and turned it around, and it was making millions. And he just knew what to do. He was brilliant. And I think he'd probably be gobsmacked if he could see me now and what I was doing, because I still don't really know what I'm doing. I've got to be honest. Half the time I'm winging it. But it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, incredible. And I don't know whether you know or not, but niching is something that I talk about a lot, because it's one of the main things that I find has, as you experienced and said, it can have the biggest single amount of change in your business by something so what feels hard to do. And we resist it. We resist it like mad, like crazy, even though you're told, well, it makes it easier for you. It makes it simpler. It's easier to win clients. You can actually charge more because you're a specialist. It's like, it solves so many problems, and yet we all resist it like crazy. So to hear you say, you bit the bullet and you did it, and that was your experience, it's like, yes. And that's the same thing that happens with my clients. So I was sitting here silently clapping for you. They're saying, well done, well done.
It's amazing, but it took time because, like I said, I started out as a breakup and bereavement coach, and that wasn't really working. And then I thought, I'm going to just become grief and loss, and so that kind of niched me down a bit more, because I was it's scary, isn't it? It's so scary because you feel. I thought, to call myself the widow coach, is that a bit arrogant? Is that, like, am I offering too much? Can I really be that person? And you overthink it, don't you? And you put all these blocks in the way as to reasons why you can't do it. But then when you kind of just remove those blocks and think, that's what I want to do, that's the person I want to reach, magical things happen.
Yeah. And it's, I think for some, you do have to go on that journey of trying it out and trying it on. And this was a totally new area for you. Obviously, you hadn't been a coach before. You hadn't been coaching people through grief and loss. So you've kind of got to experience it and then reflect on it and be like, is that feeling like a good place to be? Am I feeling like the right person to be helping them? Whereas, there are other people coming into their business that are doing what they have done for many years, maybe in the job. And I think it can be faster for them. They've still got the same fears, but it's more about, well, what is that spot for you that actually feels really good? And you've still got to try it on. You might try on a couple of the dresses before you find the one. You're like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
Or, you need to peel back the layers. I talk about that a bit. It's like peeling back the onion. You sort of start with this and then you cut off a bit more, another layer comes off until you really get to the heart of it. And that's where your best niche is. So that's wonderful. Yeah. Now I have a question for you, because something you said sort of sparked, I know it's quite a common question as well for people who are in probably more of a coaching environment. And it was when you said you're not doing any one-to-ones anymore and you're doing group only. Now, when you're coaching people through something quite personal and like traumatic, I guess, they're in a place. How has that shift gone for you? How are your audience and clients responding to that? Because I guess where this question's coming from, and people listening that are in this place and they're still holding on to the one-to-one, because you think, well, there's some people just want one-to-one and they don't believe in a group environment. They don't believe it can work for them. So how have you made that transition? How are you making it work, especially on such a topic that's so personal?
It's really personal. And making that decision was really hard, hard. I thought about it for a long time. Because people do want that space. And I think it's very important in grief that you hold space for somebody and you give them that time to speak their truth, to say what they want to say. And it is very intimate. You're sharing things with somebody that you wouldn't share ordinarily with others. There was resistance, when I started talking about it to my one-to-one clients, there was definitely resistance. They didn't want that. They want that time in that space. But I had to put my own needs first. I couldn't cope. And, you do 4 one-to-one sessions a day with people that are grieving. By the end of the day, you're done. You're done.
Right.
Like, I had nothing left to give to anyone, myself, my children. And, I just thought this isn't actually sustainable. Equally, I always make this very clear to my clients. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counsellor. I can't help people unpick deep-rooted trauma or issues or anything mental health. I can't, and I don't want to. That's not what I'd have become a counsellor if I'd wanted to do that, and I did think about it, and I thought, no, I want to help people move forward. And what I found is, in one-to-one sessions, it's harder to keep people on track. Because people want to talk to you. They want to tell you their story. They want to explain everything at great length, which is important and that's needed. However, I would say maybe find a counsellor or find a really good friend or somebody that you could trust that you can do that with and find that space. I want to help you take action. And I find that when you have a group of people come together, it's easier to stay on topic and to gain that momentum, bring things back to the point of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to help them with, and get them to take the action they need to take those steps forwards. And I found that difficult in one-to-one sessions because people open their hearts up to you, and it's wonderful, and it's, you know, I'm very honored to share that space with people, and I've had some incredible conversations. However, sometimes you get to the end of a one-to-one session and it felt like it had been more of a counselling session, and then I feel like I'm not serving people in the way that I want to be serving them. So there has been resistance. It hasn't been easy. I'm still doing it. You know, I think I need a year to see how this goes. I mean, one lady did approach me and said, could I please just have one session with you? I know you're not doing it anymore. Could you? And I thought, I don't really want to. So I'm going to tell you it's £150 for the session, thinking she'd say, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't know what that converts to in US dollars, but thinking she'd say that, you know, that's too expensive. But she didn't, you know. And then I was like, oh my God, somebody's paying £150 to speak to me for an hour, you know? And so I think there comes a point where you can price yourself higher, because you don't really want to be doing the one-to-ones, because it does take up so much time and energy. But there's a place, if people want it badly enough, they will pay premium prices for it. And it's not, yes, I want to make money. I've struggled to come to terms with that as well, and to own that, you know, to say, yes, I want to make money is difficult for me to say, because it feels wrong, especially with what I do. And it wasn't what I started out with. But actually, as I've made money, I've realized that opens up experiences and opportunities for me in my business and in my life. And the more money I make, the more people I can help, and the more I can live my life and have opportunities for myself. And so I'm like, do you know what? I actually do want to make a lot of money. But before that, I want to help people. So, you know, by doing it in groups, I can help more people. I can reach more people. Yes. And if they want a one-to-one and they're prepared to pay a premium price for it, then maybe, but not an easy transition to make, I've got to be honest. But I really feel like it's the right one. Really 100% feel it's the right one.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because it's been something that I have experienced as well. I started with one-to-one, and then I got to that point. I'm like, I can't cope. I can't keep track of who they are and what they're doing. And, you know, and start a session and be, you know, racking my brain about where we were up to. And, you know, I didn't have the headspace for it. And so I knew early on, I'm like, well, one-to-one for me is going to be a very minimal amount of people. So I generally have 2 or 3 max at a time. And even it goes down to 1, I'm like, I don't mind. I'm not out there looking for them. I just let them kind of come to me naturally. But it's been really interesting, and that's why I asked the question, because I wanted to hear your experience as well, because the groups are just so powerful. Like, it's amazing the energy that you get when you get a group of people together in a room. And even though I think a lot of us, I work with women as well, and there's a lot of fear about, well, you know, what if I'm in a group and I've got to share stuff and people will see that I'm not as experienced as what, you know, I want to be seen as, or that I'm sharing something I don't know and feeling vulnerable about it. But then when they get in there and they realize that everybody feels like that, everybody, you know, nobody knows everything. Like, no one does. That's the whole point. And as soon as we drop that fear of judgment and that need to be something like perfect that nobody is, then there's so much power in it. And I just love the group, because I've found the people who I've coached who've been involved in the group, the shared experience, the insights that come from other people sharing and other people's questions lead to breakthroughs for the others in the group that they didn't even realize was something that they were missing or they needed. So, you know, I'm such a fan of it, and it's really interesting. You know, I still do have calls of people who are like, oh no, I think I need just one-to-one because I need, you know, that focused time. And I'm thinking, no, I think you'd actually do better in a group.
Exactly that. And again, people are nervous of it. They're like, oh, I'm not very good on camera, and I don't like Zoom, and I don't like groups, and I can't speak up. But I'm like, if you want to grow, I wouldn't say it quite so bluntly to people. I'd say, but essentially it's like, if you want to grow, if you want to try new things and break through your fears, this is a great place to start, because you are going into a place where everyone's feeling the same, and what other people say is going to invite you to explore areas of your grief, of your life, that you hadn't even thought of, that you haven't been able to process or recognize or even put into words yet. And to your point, the breakthroughs, the aha moments, the validating of, okay, maybe I'm not going mad, maybe this is all right. It's huge. You can't get that on a one-to-one, because sometimes you can feel, when somebody's talking to just you and challenging maybe your thoughts, your behaviors in some way, we can get defensive. We all do, don't we? We're like, oh, no, don't do that. But when you're in a group setting and somebody's just talking about something they've experienced, they've been through, and you think, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. I can see that. I'm doing that. But it's not aimed at you. So I think you're more open to the message and what's being said. And I love it. I love the people that say to me, oh, I don't think group coaching is for me. And I'm like, yes, you're coming with me, because this is going to change your world.
Yes, because maybe that's actually a sign that you're holding so much back. You're thinking 100%. I can't share in that environment. And actually, the amount of progress, the insights that you get from just what other people are doing, it is incredible. That's why I as well am in the group coaching program, because I know the power of it. I was like, it's just beyond what you can get when it's just you, because you often don't know the question to ask, right? I'm always like, well, I don't know what my blind spot is. Someone else tell me what it is.
When you're put on the spot.
You need to hear someone else's story and then think, gosh, that's exactly where I am. And just going through that with them, the experience and the coaching is so powerful. Now, do you have a specific, you've mentioned you're not a counselor. Love that. It's really action-based and moving forward. So do you have a framework or a process that you take people through in your program?
Yeah, so I've developed my own method. It's the Re-Empowered Widow method, because I kind of, the people, the women that I work with, they're strong women. They were strong women in their lives. They were empowered, but this is kind of knocked them for six. So yes, absolutely, I want to re-empower them. I want to help them take back their control, and in that, I help them to relearn. You have to almost unlearn everything you thought you knew up to that point and relearn a totally new way, because everything in your world has changed. Everything. There's very little that stays the same or feels the same. And, you've got to understand how you can let go of some of your old thoughts, feelings, beliefs, ideals, and relearn a new way, rewrite the story, I suppose. And that's hard. That's really hard. So I like to help them to do that. I like to help them to reconnect with themselves, with their person, to discover who they are, where they fit in life, and what they want from it and how they can go about getting that, and then help them sort of reimagine their life after loss and how they can recreate something powerful, meaningful, how they can learn to be more resilient, to grow around their grief and find meaning in their life after loss. So they are, obviously in amongst all that, there's lots of different modules and topics that we cover and we talk about, but essentially they're, my model is the Re-Empowered Widow method with its 3 factors in there. And it's taken a long time to develop that and to bring that together. People say to me, like, God, how did you come up with that? But it's like, well, I didn't just come up with it. I remember the very first program I did the whole, what do they say? Monetize it before you make it type thing. So I kind of sold these places for this program. I didn't have anything. I was just like, I thought, do you know what? Rather than try and get something perfectly set up before I start, I'm just going to write it as I go. I'm going to figure out what they want and I'm going to write each week as I go. And it started out as 6 weeks. And then, it turned into 16 weeks because I realized 6 weeks was nothing and that wasn't even touch the sides. And then you're coming up with all this content, and then just to kind of put it all into a method that works, that you can go through as a step-by-step process. And I have 12 modules, and I have a year-long program that people will come into, and we go through my method and everything that entails, and it feels good. It gives me clarity, but it's not something that has come up just easily or quickly.
No.
It's been developed over a long time, and yes, really trying to understand what it is I'm trying to help people do. But God,
I really think that's really smart, because you've developed it with live feedback from people who you're coaching at the time and what they're needing, and the insights that you're having through those conversations, which is so different to you sitting there with a blank piece of paper thinking, right, I want to coach people. Okay, what do they need? Well, I don't know. I've got a blank piece of paper here. Like it could have sat there for years trying to figure it out. But to build it in the live environment, like, you know, that's also how I came up with my framework as well. Because I was like, well, I don't know, where am I going to start? Like, how do I unpack? For me, like, I had 24 years of marketing experience. I was like, how do I unpack that and put it together in something simple that someone can understand? Like, I didn't even know where to begin. And so I did the same as you. I was like, well, I'll start one-to-one coaching, and I'll actually be more led by what they you know, what I see they're struggling with. And, you know, like, okay, what are the things that we're going to focus on now? What are the things that you're going to stop, continue, all of that? And it evolved out of that, because it became really clear. It's like, these are the steps, and this is the right way to put it together. And, you know, then you come up with something simple, which is good. So no, I commend you for doing that way, because it's clearly how you get something that works. You know, that's,
well, I think like you say, you can overthink things, can't you? And you procrastinate, and then you're never ready, and then nothing ever happens. And it really is by doing it is how you discover what works and what's needed. And you just start small, you start cheap, you know, you kind of wing it every step of the way. But ultimately it does all become clear. It does become clear. But I don't know, for me, 100% the best way. It kind of makes sense. And if anyone else asks me how to do it, that's exactly what I would say to them, because you're figuring out what people want and need, and what feels right. And that's ultimately what you want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So I love that. That's awesome. And I was going to ask you, you know, how long it takes for someone to really find their new path. And you mentioned that your program's a year long, which, you know, it's like, that probably makes a lot of sense, because there's so much to work through, isn't there? Gone through such a huge life change.
And I think change takes a long time. It takes longer than we expect it to, or we want it to. And we live in a very fast-paced world. We want everything yesterday. You know, we can order something on our phone and we can have it the next day, or we can, you know, if it's food, we can have it within the next hour. And we want everything yesterday. We've become impatient. And actually, for me, myself, definitely this applies to me, and what I've seen with people is we give up too quickly. We kind of go, it's not working. It's not working. I've done something for 3 hours. And I haven't tried
it once, it didn't work. Therefore, that's no good.
This is it. And it's like, it takes a long time. And especially when you've lost someone you love, like, you're talking years. You're talking years. You know, I always talk of the early days of grief for the first 2 years. And you can make huge changes in that time, huge changes, and do so much. But to create a life that feels good, those daily habits, those actions, those thoughts, I mean, changing our thoughts, our mindsets, I mean, that's a constant work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what I think people try and do is that, well, they believe that you can change something immediately. You can flick a switch. You can recognize that something isn't working for you. You can decide to change it, and that's it. It's done. It doesn't work like that, does it? You know, you slip backwards, things happen, but it's learning, it's understanding what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You might try something that doesn't work. So, okay, don't give up. Like, let's find another way. Let's figure it out and do something different again, and give it time and see if it works. I think it's a bit like wanting to learn to run, isn't it? And get fit. Like, you're not just going to be able to go out and run 5K and that's it, job done. You know, it's going to take you a few months.
Practice. And the more you practice, then the easier it gets, doesn't it?
So I think that's why I've made my program a year, because I just feel like people need that support. And to help them. That life still happens, whatever you're going through, whatever you're trying to do, life still happens around you. You're going to meet bumps in the road, and it's navigating those bumps in the road and not allowing them to completely derail you and go, do you know what? I kind of want to get over this hump and I want to get to the other side of it, but I don't know how. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure it out together. So that's why I want but I think people initially will attend very regularly in the first sort of 6 months. And then I'm hoping that in the final, because I haven't got to the end of anyone's year, that they will slowly but surely tail off. They may not be attending every week, they may come every other week, and then it might be once a month. And because I don't want people to need me forever. I want them to learn the skills so they can go off and do this stuff for themselves. So, and that's why I thought, a year I think is a nice amount of time. And I've got my membership as well, that where people want continued support, they can just come into something where it's a little less of a commitment for them financially and time wise, but there's still something there holding them accountable and keeping them going.
Yeah, there's some really, really valuable and important points in there, I think, for all of us, and it's so interesting, the parallels between this, life transformation and business. I coach people in their business, and it's so interesting the amount of people who think that you can make this change like that and start a business and bang, it's because, there's been stories that they've heard of someone having some miraculous thing that's happened. But it's like, this is not, let's not put a deadline on success. And let's not say, well, it has to be successful within 3 months, or this isn't any good, or I'm not doing it. It's like, if you actually want this business or this life change, then it's about committing to it, no matter how long it takes, and you will go at the speed that you're allowing yourself to go at. So it's more about finding, what are those things that are stopping you? What is it that you want to do? And actually just keeping on moving forward. And I think that was something I realized, I was just thinking about it this week, which is why it kind of came to mind. It's like, let's take the deadline off success. Like, why do we put it on ourselves, put all this pressure on, like, I've got to make it happen within a year, or it's got to be done within whatever time? It's like, well, this is your journey. If you're doing this because you want to be in it for the rest of your life, what does it matter if it takes 3 months or 6 months or a year? Of course, we want it faster, but maybe we've got lessons that we've got to learn along the way. And if we're not learning the lessons, if we're too busy going after the deadline, then it is going to take longer probably than we thought. And just kind of accept it. I think release that and let go of it, let go of that need for it to be finite.
And I think it's so true that the parallel of life and business, they do overlap. They weave into each other, and it's, they say, don't they, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's so true, And I think we have to apply our levels of discipline, our habits, our behaviors to how we do life, to how we do parenting, to how we do business, to how we do our friendships, our relationships, And you will find your way of doing it that works for you. And then you can apply those ways to all areas of your life. But give yourself some grace, like this pressure we put on ourselves. I remember when I started out and I thought I was just going to see people in my office here at home that, okay, well, give myself a year and hopefully I'll be making, a couple of grand a month. No, no, you need a lot longer. It's not something that happens quickly. And I could have got to the end of that year and thought, well, I'm not making a couple of grand a month, I'm going to give up. It's not going to work,
exactly.
But no, because like you say, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what's important to me. And I'm not going to give up. I'm going to find a way of making this work. And actually, the things you want from it keep changing.
Yes.
Because as you keep going through your business, like that couple of grand a month I wanted to make is now like, right, I want to make 10K a month.
Yeah, exactly.
And the goalposts keep moving.
They keep moving.
They keep moving, and you keep saying, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But you have to keep, you've got to have something to strive towards, but also recognizing where you're at and realizing that you are successful exactly where you are in this moment doing what you're doing. Success isn't something that's at the end of some road that is defined by, how much money you're making or how big your business is or how many people you've got working for you. Like, figure out what success means for you and understand that you are in this moment a very successful human being, as you are right here, right now. That doesn't mean you don't want to be bigger, you don't want to grow, but I think we're always striving for something more, and we never just take time in this moment to go, do you know what? I'm doing it, and it's amazing, and I'm doing it well, and I'm going to keep doing it. And that's the magic of it, isn't it? Just owning that space and recognizing that in yourself, rather than thinking you're still not good enough because you haven't got to a certain point.
I love that. It's so aligned with my perspective as well. It's like, take that moment to appreciate yourself and acknowledge how far you've come. You're like, whether it's your life that you're transforming or your business, we forget that there's all these, you're having wins all the time. But because we've got our eyes on this bigger prize, you're not actually taking notice of them or giving yourself any credit or any acknowledgement or appreciation. So what are you telling your subconscious mind when you're not appreciating yourself or what you're doing? How do you think that's playing out? It's like the child that you never praise for the things that they're doing. Well, why would they keep doing those good things when they're not getting praise for it? They'll eventually just sort of like dwindle off. It's like, well, you've kind of got to do that to yourself. You've got to praise yourself for doing good work, like, well done. And I remember hearing that once, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to start giving myself gold stars. So I'm like, love it. Excellent. Every time a client signs up or every time I get a payment, I'm putting a gold star on the calendar for that day. And then I'm going to look up at my wall of gold stars and appreciate myself and like go, I've done that. It's great. And, like acknowledge every day just the lifestyle that I'm living as well, because
that you're living. I love that.
So important.
We all need to go and buy some gold stars. And put them on our calendar so we can just see this, like these rows of gold stars, and just see that we're winning. We are winning at life exactly where we are. Because it's perfect. I love it. I want to do that.
Well, I have a funnier one for you, but it's not my own, but I heard one of the guys in our coaching group, he said he gives himself a self five. So it's like a high five, but he's not high-fiving anyone else because he works at home on his own. So he high fives himself.
Love that.
I was like, I love that. It's so funny.
It's like Mel Robbins. She has a high five habit, doesn't she? That she's every morning you should get up and high five yourself in the mirror. Because when you give somebody a high five, yourself a high five, you're kind of like, go, you're doing it, you're doing great, and to look yourself in the eye in the mirror every morning and give yourself a high five. It's just a great way to sort of go, yes, you've got this, you're doing okay.
Love it. I love it. This is such a fantastic high vibe moment, I think, to end this episode on. So if anybody who's been listening is just like, I've got to reach out, learn more about Karen, and, maybe you're going through this traumatic life experience as well, and Karen could help you. So how can people best find you and connect with you?
So my website is literally www.karensutton.co.uk. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and it's at Karen Sutton Widow Coach. I'd say Instagram and TikTok and Facebook are the main ones, to be honest. I'm trying to embrace TikTok. Everyone's like, get on TikTok. So I'm on there trying to. So am I. I'm just, again winging it, but you just think, well, you've got to give these things a go, because I want to reach more people. So yes, then that would be at Karen Sutton Widow Coach is most of my handles on social media. So and any of those places, I would love to hear from anyone.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much. I will link all of those up in the show notes. So you don't have to try to remember that. Just drop down and grab the link there, and you can find Karen and go and see what she's doing on TikTok, having a bit of fun, getting out there and just connecting with people. So I love that. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time and everything that you've shared with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Do you know what the #1 challenge reported by the women joining my Facebook community, My Tribe, said that they were struggling with their marketing in 2021, and in fact even in 2020 as well? And that was exactly how they should reach their ideal client. How do they even get in front of them in order to build their audience in the first place? That was it, and it wasn't a pick and mix I didn't give them that answer. It was a free text question, so they could write in there anything they wanted at all. And the number of times that I saw somebody say, how to create awareness, how to get in front of my ideal client and build my audience. So many people just challenged by it. And why is that when there's such an abundance of ways that we can get in front of the ideal client? And I think it's probably that is exactly it. It's so overwhelming, isn't it? What should you do? What should you choose? What are the best ways? Whatever it is that you're doing right now might not be working. And I think it's a great time to sit back, reflect, and figure out what's the right way for you to do it. What are the ways that you're going to reach your prospective clients in 2022? So if that sounds like you, if that might have been what you wrote down in the questions on what is your biggest challenge with your marketing currently, then you're going to absolutely love the new freebie that I've just put together for you. It's called 12 Brilliant Ways to Reach Your Ideal Client. And in it, I share with you the 12, in my view, 12 top ways that you could use in your marketing plan this year to reach a bigger, broader audience in order to attract those ideal clients in to your inner circle, into your, really well-defined audience and become real leads for you. So if you'd like to get your hands on this brand new freebie, then all you need to do is go to jessicaosborne.com/12 ways. So it's 12 ways. Very easy. You can download it there, and this is a little bit of great resource for your planning, for the planning of the new year. See what you're going to change up. What is it that you maybe haven't been doing that you could be doing? And what are those things that you've been doing and they're not very effective, and maybe you're going to drop them out of your plan this year? So please head over, grab the freebie. If you want the link, that it's in the show notes, and let's get you moving on up, having more success with your marketing in 2022.